Brazil nuts are very different from all other nuts due to their unique composition. It's all about their high content of selenium, a vital and essential trace element for our body. In addition to selenium, they contain other trace elements, though in much smaller amounts. We'll now tell you in detail about all this, as well as how to consume them, choose them correctly, and what risks they may pose in large quantities. In fact, what we call Brazil nuts are not nuts at all, but rather seeds extracted from the fruit of a South American tree called Bertholletia. And they're not just from Brazil. The nuts we see on store shelves most likely grew in Bolivia. Bolivia is actually the largest exporter of Bertholletia nuts. These nuts are harvested from the wild. We often worry that the foods we consume are grown in unnatural conditions. In the case of Brazil nuts, which we'll sometimes call Bertholletia, there's no need to worry about this, and here's why. The trees grow best in the wild jungles of the Amazon. Farmers have long tried to domesticate the crop, but plantations don't yield the expected results. This is because the virgin Amazon forests are home to the only natural pollinators of Bertholletia: bumblebees and orchid bees with long proboscises. Other insects simply can't penetrate the Bertholletia flower, so it's almost impossible to grow these trees under artificial conditions. And this giant tree is one of the tallest on the planet. It can grow up to 50 meters in height, with a diameter reaching 2 meters. On average, it lives for 500 years, but some researchers claim to have seen specimens that have lived over 1,000 years. The fruits themselves only start appearing after the tree has lived for 12 years. When ripe, the fruits fall on their own, and their dense rind provides protection from damage. In appearance and shape, they resemble coconuts, but instead of milk inside, they contain 8 to 24 neatly arranged seeds. Since they fall to the ground on their own, collecting them is fairly easy. The only important thing is to protect your head from being hit by a fruit falling from the height of an 18-story building. Brazil nuts have a rather controversial flavor profile compared to other nuts. Various independent tastings have revealed preferences for macadamia, cashews, almonds, and other nuts. Brazil nuts are 70% fat, which gives them a slight earthy flavor, hence the conflicting customer reviews. However, people are very interested in Brazil nuts for preventive health purposes, as well as for their potential benefits in various diseases. As a result, they're in high demand worldwide. Selenium is uniquely concentrated in these nuts. The root system of the Bertholletia tree is highly branched and goes deep into the soil, absorbing various elements from the earth. The tree accumulates a large amount of selenium in its seeds. 100 grams of nuts exceed the daily requirement of selenium by 27 times. That's 2,700% of the daily value. In comparison, the same amount of seafood recommended for selenium content contains on average between 50 to 150% of the daily selenium requirement. One nut weighs about 5 grams, and you only need 1 or 2 pieces a day to meet your daily selenium requirement. And here's why we need selenium so much. About 85% of our body's energy is produced only in the presence of selenium. Selenium is a major antioxidant. Only in its presence is glutathione peroxidase, the main enzyme of antioxidant defense, synthesized. This protection helps prevent the development of tumors and slows down the aging process. Selenium is present in all hormone production processes. It's this trace element that boosts immunity by stimulating the creation of antibodies against viruses. Approximately 200 enzymes in our body contain selenium. Without it, these enzymes simply cannot be synthesized. It participates in the synthesis of cartilage tissue. It's also found in the tissues of almost all organs, most abundantly in the liver, kidneys, seminal fluid, and brain. The daily requirement of selenium for humans ranges from 28 to 10 micrograms. In terms of Brazil nuts, that's a maximum of 3 nuts per day. The maximum allowable amount is 300 micrograms per day. Excess consumption of selenium-containing foods can lead to poisoning and, consequently, serious skin problems, brittle nails, nausea, vomiting, arthritis, and even nervous system disorders. There was a famous episode of Dr. House about Brazil nut poisoning, so he ate Brazil nuts. So what? The fact is, he ate a lot of Brazil nuts, and that's bad because they contain selenium. Other health benefits of Brazil nuts. Bertholletia seeds are very rich in vitamins and minerals, when considered per 100 grams of weight. But remember about selenium. Its amount per 100 grams exceeds the daily norm by 27 times. Therefore, you shouldn't consume these nuts as the main source of other elements due to the risk of selenium overdose. Still, by consuming 2 pieces a day, which is about 10 grams, you're additionally supplying your body with these micronutrients. Look, 70% of the nut's total mass is specifically fats, with mono and polyunsaturated fats predominating. 18% of the total is protein, and of the remaining carbohydrates, half is fiber. The vitamin and mineral composition of these nuts is very interesting. Those same 2 pieces contain 3 to 10% of the daily allowance of magnesium, copper, phosphorus, manganese, vitamin B1, zinc, and vitamin E. All of these are present in the nuts in a natural organic form and are absorbed by the body almost 100%. By consuming these nuts, you're getting quality calories. 10 grams of nuts is 65 kilocalories, which promotes satiety. What can 2 nuts a day affect? Let's reiterate that all the beneficial properties of the nut when consuming 2 pieces a day are mainly related to the necessary daily allowance of selenium. The other elements are merely complementary, and that's what this is about. Thanks to its antioxidant properties, it strengthens immunity, slows down the aging process, both physical and mental, increases the overall tone of the body. Useful for male health, potency enhancement, increased libido, and improved semen quality. Yes, selenium is a key element in the composition of sperm, improve women's health, normalizes the hormonal background, and the state of the urogenital system. This is because selenium is involved in many hormone formation processes, strengthening of the cardiovascular system, prevents muscular dystrophy of the heart, neutralizes toxins, stimulates the synthesis of hemoglobin, makes the walls of blood vessels more elastic, improves the gastrointestinal tract. Nut stimulates intestinal peristalsis, prevents constipation, quenches inflammation, provides injury prevention, helps in strengthening muscles, ligaments, and joints. Nut affects the nervous system, fights stress, normalizes it, prevents and halts the development of malignant tumors. Very useful for thyroid disorders. The nut has a very positive effect on the beauty of the skin, hair, and nails. Therefore, in addition to eating it, cosmetics based on the Brazil nut are also used in South America. It is added to conditioners, shampoos, shower gels, face creams, and hair masks. Harmful properties of Brazil nuts. It is very important to consume nuts in the right way. And it's not just the high selenium content. We emphasize throughout the video exactly the norm of 2 nuts a day to rule out overdoing it. Here's another thing that's important to know. Brazil nuts are considered one of the strongest allergens in the world. Allergy sufferers are many times more allergic to them than they are to hazelnuts or peanuts. The peel of Brazil nuts contains aflatoxin, which leads to liver cancer and lycosis, so it's best not to risk consuming unpeeled Brazil nuts. Notably, the European Union has imposed strict regulations on importing Brazil nuts in their own shells, precisely because of aflatoxins. This is most likely why you can only find peeled nuts in many countries. There is a small amount of radioactive radium in the composition of the Bertholletia fruit. This raises a lot of concerns about nut consumption. But these fears are in vain, especially considering the consumption of 2 nuts a day. In the first place, this dose is extremely small, from 30 to 250 cal per kilogram, although it's 1,000 times more than in other foods. And secondly, most of the radium is found in the core of the fruit itself, the same coconut, in which the kernels are in the shell. And the presence of radium is not due to soil contamination, but to the root system, which is very branched and is able to pump out various elements from the soil and groundwater. How to choose and store. Since the nut is 70% fat, it cannot be stored for long after the shell is removed. After initial contact with the air, it stays fresh for about a month. From South America, the nut is most often brought in already peeled, so it is important to consider this fact. So, if there are concerns about the shelf life of nuts in your store, look out for nuts that are sold vacuum-packed. They always have an expiration date on them, which is a good guarantee of freshness. Here's another way to tell if a nut is past its prime. Appearance: dark stains, large chips, the slightest signs of mold. A reason to refuse to buy. Odor: you should feel a slight sweetness and a distinctive buttery, nutty flavor. If the Brazil nut is bitter, it has already started to spoil. You cannot eat such a product. To keep the nuts from spoiling, you can store them in the freezer. This way they retain all their qualities. You can keep them like this for about 1 year. You can, of course, and fry, but heat treatment partially neutralizes some of the beneficial properties. How to consume Brazil nuts? In raw form as a snack along with fruit. Crushed nuts can be added to baked goods, salads, or desserts. They can be lightly fried beforehand, but remember that heat treatment reduces the concentration of useful microelements.
This content is for informational and educational purposes only. Consult with a doctor or healthcare professional before following any recommendations provided in this video. Tell us about your experience in the comments and subscribe to our channel.